Welcome to Elite Broker, the podcast showcasing the leading players and stories of success from Australia's broking industry.
Hello and welcome back to Elite Broker. It's Annie Kane here today, chatting to another amazing Elite Broker this week as we're unpacking what it takes to build a booming brokerage and leading a team. If you've been around the traps for a while, you might have met Phil Rogers, the Managing Director of Loan Market Edge, which has got clients across Queensland with offices based in Gold Coast and Townsville. And over the last 15 years or so, Phil has been building his booming broking business, having won countless awards and really establishing what it takes to build a innovative broking business. But what exactly does this look like and how has he done it? In this episode of Elite Broker, we're picking his brain to find out. How are you going, Phil? Thanks for joining us.
Good. Great to be here. Thanks, Annie.
Here in New South Wales, I appreciate you coming down, schlepping down from the sunshine.
I've brought the weather as well.
You're
really
welcome.
You're welcome.
You did. It was a heat wave today. It's going to be 30 degrees and it's only October. I can't believe it. But I think it's amazing seeing, how much of your kind of business has been up in the lights recently. I feel like whenever there's an award ceremony or whenever there's any finalists, Loan Market Edge is always in there. And I always remember it because I'm like, what a weird business name. Can you give me an idea? Why is it called Loan Market Edge?
Look, Edge came from geographically when naming collectives were first sort of coming into play for loan market. Having Townsville, Mackay, Gold Coast, I didn't want to have 3 Facebook pages and 3 Instagrams and all those things. And it was very, a little bit limited to what names we could potentially have. And, names that we couldn't have East Coast or West, so we had to come up with some names in there and, get the edge on your finances, I guess. But it's maybe 5 to 10 years old now. So we just kind of took it and ran with it, and it's allowed us to grow across geographical space, but still come together as a group. Yeah,
that's always one of our problems whenever we have to do, the award ceremonies, whether it's Stream Broking Awards or the Better Business Awards, and we're having to put like everyone's business name, and people are like, is this right? Like Edge? I'm like, yeah, that's correct.
That's the one.
But you cover, as you said there, a broad area of Queensland and got clients not just in Queensland, obviously, but across the country. How long have you been actually broking for, though? Like, how long have you been in this industry for? 15
years, which is crazy to think. Obviously started when I was very young. But we started the business, one-man band with a laptop and a spare desk in a Ray White office. Fast forward 15 years, there's 18 of us as of today, and growing rapidly.
Yeah. So what were you doing beforehand? Why did you become a broker?
Oh, interesting. Nothing to do with finance, no banking experience, no university. Well, the normal questions they get asked. Just sales. And I fell into a role where I was offered some work with real estate, was probably a little bit burnt from a previous business partnership, which had been based around sales, and thought, well, finance, how hard can that be? Baptism of fire, that was.
So you go into a Ray White office and you're like, actually, it's pretty hard.
Well, I could sell me. I could sit in front of people. I could, take names and numbers and talk to them openly. And I bought a few houses here and there, so I knew some of the questions to ask. But I guess thankfully, I can say it now, but compliance wasn't as heavy back then. So I could fumble my way through for the first couple of years just to find my way.
Yeah, normally I ask people how you chose your aggregator, but obviously being in the Ray White family, pretty much that decision was made for you.
Yes.
So Loan Market it was. And how did you get across all of the compliance then? Because I think this is something, a broker starting out today, very different process and sort of structure than I imagine it would have been 15 years ago.
Hugely. And look, the story doesn't come with any, it was literally probably a year in, I took out a $5,000 credit card. I hired my first staff member. Gave myself 3 months to make it.
Yep.
I couldn't afford one at the time, but I couldn't afford not to have one. So thankfully, a part-time person who previously worked in mortgages came across, was happy to take the role and had done all of this previously, which I had not.
Yeah.
So I could bring people in the front end, but then it got to that point, thankfully they put some organisational structure around how to get a deal through and over to the bank.
Do you think that's an important skill set now for people wanting to become a broker or just to be successful in broking? Do you think you need to be a good salesperson?
I think the best brokers are salespeople. And I think whether that's, people talk about sales as sort of a negative connotation sometimes, but we offer a service that saves people money and we solve very big problems for people. right? That if people want to call that sales, they can call that sales. But you're selling, 80% of Australians now use a broker. It used to be, do we go to a bank or do we go to a broker? Now it's which broker, right? So it's a very different market to where we are now to where we used to be. So I think more than ever, yes, from a sales point of view, whether that's just selling trust, selling your services, selling yourself, that plays a really big role.
Yeah, and of course selling based in truth, not like lying to people, not kind of like doing that kind of, look over here, smoke and mirrors. It's actually ensuring that they're
There's nowhere to hide.
Yeah, selling a story, I suppose, of how you can help them rather than selling.
Yeah, a big believer in things like financial literacy. We're really passionate about when. And again, the word compliance, it sounds bad when I say it. If I say it that way, it wasn't that big back then. Probably was.
Still pretty important,
but again, when you could fax through a couple of pay slips and a handwritten application, it's a lot different to the level of discovery we now go through, which I firmly believe is one of the best things that's ever happened to the industry overall, not only for us as an industry, but also for the client, for the consumer, right? For the amount of work that now goes into coming up with a recommendation for a client. I think we are a professional services. We've moved away from, again, what maybe go back that 10 or 15 years of what a broker was to what a broker is now. That's also changed significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And
for the better.
So much now, I think, as well, with people in Australia being, as we know, property obsessed, you kind of need that specialist advice, like credit advice and property help to be like, what on earth do I do here once I've bought more than one property? Like, how am I going to manage this?
We're obnoxiously passionate about two things. One is sport, two is property.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of the only countries in the world that works. So you've got the accent, so you would know back home. It's not a talked about. It's not a at the pub conversation around what your house, what you bought it for, what you sold it for,
you don't
what
talk
it's
about
now
money
worth.
at all.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. So, running with that means that, being that trusted advisor piece, and it's kind of, why choose us? We talk about cutting through the noise. Why choose us? Why stay with us? Right? As a broker, we need to do more to cut through that noise now, noting that, again, if 80% of Australians are using a broker, it's also trying to demonstrate the difference between, a good broker and a great broker. Chapter 1 versus chapter 10, there's very different experiences.
Yeah. So let's go back to then, I guess, how you got to where you are today. Because I think like starting off as a one-man band with a laptop in a very white office to then a year in hiring your first support staff. How did you go from that to 18 people?
Could have done it quicker, if that's the crazy thing to think about, to where the journey we are now. But it was really just about playing to my strengths and now being very obvious what my weaknesses were. And would you say back-end paperwork compliance, it's critical to the success of our business, but it wasn't something that gave me energy. And it wasn't something that I really enjoyed doing. Two things I really enjoy doing. One is growing people and two is growing businesses, right? And so that's always been aligned with the growth that I wanted to have and my personal values around legacy and impact and giving back and growth and those things. It all aligned with going. And a one-man band is a great business model, and absolutely that's kind of where that started. But very quickly it became obvious that wasn't going to be the thing that gave me the passion for this industry to year on year continue to want to do what I was doing.
Yeah. So you hired your first person a year in. How long was it before? You said it took a little bit longer than you wanted. How long before you kind of start bringing in more people and more brokers? Because I think that's a big first step.
And the learnings in that, right, is that they get asked that question, if you started your business again today, would you do anything differently? I don't have regrets for how I did it, but would I do things differently? Absolutely, right? And when you build that model from a one-man band to where we're going, that broker to brokerage shift now, they require very different things. And when I look at the model we had then, if I'd done that differently, the one-man band and a really strong back-end support before bringing other brokers in, right? Initially, it was like, well, I had my support person, first next hire's a broker, right? And you're bringing in these loan writers because that's what people told you to do. And then I had no back-end anyway, so it wasn't working for me, it wasn't working for them, and so very, very quickly we just kind of, it was trial and error, quite sometimes quite well, sometimes quite badly. But you've got to go through that journey, right? And I guess we didn't have the level of mentoring and the work we now get to do with Loan Market as an aggregator and the things they provide to bring us together to actually have those group learnings so we don't have to rewrite the book constantly ourselves and an ability to learn from our peers. Doing that differently would have had more support first up. It would have had a really solid back end foundation. If someone's entering, the industry now, it's very different to how that business needs to look to what it was back then.
Yeah.
The majority of that, 17, 18 staff is all back end. There might be 4 brokers at the front, but if our point of difference is customer service, if the level of compliance, regulation, bid, all those things that we need to do to keep our customers and ourselves safe, there's so much that goes into moving that through so that, in our business, a broker does broker things. Right, they're a specialist, and if we use the analogy, people might not align it, but from a specialist, we go in. The specialist doesn't meet you at the front of the practice and fill out the paperwork. They don't take you to get the X-ray. Right, they walk in once everything's collated. The X-ray goes up on the board, and they point at where the problem is. Right, and they come up with the structure, the strategy to move things through. So, it's trying to allow our brokers to do more of that. Right, and to be a specialist in their field and do the big ticket items and let everything else be taken care of by the team.
Yeah. So do you still have sort of 4 brokers, you were saying that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on today, yes.
So, and
growing.
that covers, as you said, you've got sort of offices in Gold Coast and Townsville.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine those are 2 very different markets.
Yes, definitely from an average loan size.
I've never been to Townsville, but I'm assuming I have been to the Gold Coast.
I mean, the synergies between both regional. Now, some people might argue, the Gold Coast has the second highest luxury property market, second to only Sydney in the country right now. But both have very big community feels. So I think when we talk about that, your local broker and the approach that we take with our clients and the community feel that we have, it couldn't be two greater regions that are so close together in their similarities in that respect.
Yeah. And so do you then split your time between the 2 offices, or do you manage it all remotely?
Oh, the journey to where we are today is very different to even 12 months ago, right? And anyone that's probably listening to this that is in business or even within a business sees how rapidly these things evolve. And, we're kind of 4 years into the 5-year plan, which was that broker to brokerage shift, Brokertopia, as I like to call that.
Yeah, so coming off the tools.
And going into a leadership and BDM environment, which was successful in doing that as of kind of June. So only a couple of months into that now. But in that journey, it's very different to kind of how that operates now to what that did used to look like. So when we talk about splitting the time and needing to be up, and even pre-COVID, we now live in a digital space. Thank you, Queensland, for joining the rest of the world. We don't have to wet sign every set of documents. So the number of clients that come in face-to-face has changed significantly, and it's a lot less than it used to be. We can provide the same level of service. It's about making it easier to do business with us. So from a client perspective, it's not about what's easiest for us, it's what do they want. And the majority of that time, whether that's phone, whether that's Zoom, it is about making that process more convenient. So servicing them Australia-wide, let's say even Queensland-wide between our 2 offices, means we're not required to be in each location as often as we used to be.
Yeah. So do you allow your team members to work remotely?
We have the 2. We work remote from each other, but we have definitely the 2 offices they work from. So as a team, I guess we're remote, but we're in the 2 sites. So we definitely want everyone to be together.
Because my next question was going to be like, well, is there ever a time where you see maybe getting rid of an office space? If clients specifically are coming into the office less, do you ever see, is there still a role for a branch?
My accountant's definitely suggested it. No, look, I love the environment we've created and the culture that we have as a team and as a business, and to have us together. That's where the energy is. That's where the magic is. That's where I feel the clients get an even more amazing experience because we're together. The interaction we have with them at whatever stage of the process, and they do come in at different stages. It might be at loan docs, maybe not at initial appointment, right? So it might mix up a little bit through the journey, but for the majority of them, and everyone being able to talk side by side and share ideas and have that collaboration as a team and as a group, I personally believe that's only found in, we have an amazing team offshore who do some stuff remote, but they're online every day with us.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a world where we were siloed.
So I'm going to ask you a little bit about the evolution from broker to kind of business owner a little bit later, but I'd like to still kind of look at maybe what sort of things you're doing now. So when you look at the kind of the bulk of the business, what kind of loans are you writing? Are you doing just resi? Are you specialising in a particular area?
Primarily residential, and amongst the team, and as we continue to grow, some brokers may specialise in an area more than others, and that's starting to find its way out. But we do, commercial. Primarily, I'd say 80% for us is residential mortgages, definitely.
Yeah. And do you yourself sort of like now have any preference of how you manage the team in terms of specialisation? And the reason why I ask that is because let's say you've got someone who specialises in commercial property, but they go on holiday, like what happens then?
Yeah. It's the same. And, do you run pods? Do you run a pool when it comes to support? There's all these models, right? We often joke about the book of 100 pages that I've written. The first 99 of those are what not to do, right? Here's all the things we've tried, and that one page at the back that gets stripped out every 3 months has got the lessons and the learnings of things that might be working at the time. So when we go through examples like that, it's trying to not have too much of a specialist approach. I can't help myself. Yes, I'm off the tools, but I love the, more complex, high net worth, some VIP stuff in there. I really love diving back into that. We'll have, depending on even some age and demographics, we've got especially from a first home buyer point of view, everyone loves that. But there's a couple in the office that really engage and have just bought their first house. So that relationship piece and relatability there is really quite strong.
Yeah.
But it's making sure we have that diversification across the team so that if any one person is away, with the volume of clients we all see as a team every year, someone's seen that deal. Someone's had a client like that, right? And the collaboration, not only as a team, but also the week-to-week trainings and the time we spend together, everyone's learning as we go. Some of the more complex commercial, that's either going to sit with me, probably one of the other brokers, or we might outsource it to another great loan market broker if one of us is too busy or cannot do it, because we want the client to have an amazing experience. But specialization can be, it's like having an asset finance vertical. It's like you sort of got to be doing that full time, not just practicing that. So it just depends on the model. As we grew up to that, I would definitely be referring to someone that, and by default they were learning, and then you're like, cool, well now let's bring that in-house.
Yeah. So nowadays, when you think about the types of loans you're writing, you said they're predominantly resi. Are they kind of like, are they high net worth individuals? You mentioned them there, or are they like mum and dads? Like, what does your kind of demographic profile look like?
I guess it depends where you fish, right? I know for us, we can get very specific on the type of client that we want, and we've kind of now started to build that profile. It's taken some time to get to that point where we can now sort of be a little bit more, don't want to use the word choosy, but we can decide on the type of client we want to work with because we can provide an exceptional level of service or experience in that area. Not all business is good business. Right? So we've also partnered up with a number of other loan market brokers that we will refer some deals out to at certain points.
And how do you find your leads? Because I imagine when you first started out, it was coming from the real estate office, but over time I expect that's changed. How do you now generate new business?
Yeah, really grateful there. Sort of 71% of what we wrote last year came from existing clients or referral from existing clients. So there's a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. We've had a customer care team set up for 10 of those 15 years. So our existing clients get looked after really well. So the amount of business that organically grows through that or comes through the door is quite large. What that's also now created for us is the biggest opportunity. We're probably, maybe 20% of that then. So if 70 odd percent there, might be 20% comes from sort of social, digital, online presence. We've got 500 plus Google reviews. That stuff creates some really good local area marketing. And then maybe 10% referrer, where when we started, we were 90% referrer and 10% other.
Yeah.
Right. So we sort of made that shift around. What that has opened back up for us now, though, is the opportunity in the referrer space that we handle really, really well. We just need more brokers. It's a great problem to have. There's a significant volume that comes through the door, and we want to make sure first and foremost that they get service to the level they need to be.
Yeah.
before we go chasing more.
We're going to take a quick break here, Phil. When we come back, I'd actually like to talk about what your structure and process looks like. So who does what? And then also what kind of things you're using to help run an efficient business. And we'll get into that just after this message. So, Phil, you said there that, you kind of really want to maybe bring in some more brokers to help deal with the inflow of leads coming through. But I kind of want to always see, how do you even know that that's a problem? Because I think a lot of brokers might be like, I just want to take all the business I can. Yeah. And then it's only when they're in the middle of it, they're like, oh my God, this is too much work. How do you decide, what is too much?
Yeah, great question. We got really clear on that when I talk about that 4 years into that 5-year plan. 4 years ago, it was about kind of really making a decision about what I wanted personally and what we wanted from the business. And as we've grown this model, obviously the evolution of the goal's always been the same, but the plan has absolutely changed. The way we structured the team, the way we process a deal, the way we onboard a client, all of those things have changed over time. We've kind of got to a point now, we've got really clear on, as a business, and I had this curiosity maybe 12 months ago, and it's kind of gone, who's our customer? And our customer is now our broker. Now, yes, there's an end client, an end customer, which is our client, but our customer is now our broker. And as I call it, a non-selling principle, I guess, which is really common in real estate. But under that kind of model, the hotel for agents, the Ritz-Carlton for brokers is what we're building. And we've got really clear on 5 really strong pillars about, for a broker, why join us, why stay with us. There's pathways through, PAYG, there's JV options. We've really built out a model. I'm not their competition. Right? So when we set all of that up and we talk about how do you know you're getting enough business, well, it's become very obvious when I'm suddenly off the tools, the flow that's coming in, the brokers we need to be able to A, write that, but B, then for me to be able to do more of the relationship and the BDM and the business growth stuff that we're doing, there is significant opportunity that we just can't get to at the level of service that we'd like to.
Yeah.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
Great problem to have. But we also, we have a standard, and at that standard, what is best in market, we won't go below that bar when it comes to how we'll service those clients.
So you talked about the way that you service clients having changed over the years and constantly evolving. So what does that process look like now? Let's say I come in
today.
Yeah, today, exactly. Today. It might have changed by the time this podcast goes out.
Well, we've gone back to setting up sort of teams. So we have an onboarding team, we have a lodgements or approvals team, we have a settlements team, we have a post-settlement, the customer care team. So the client experience in that is they're not interacting with all of those people throughout that process. But for us to be able to do a high level of volume with a high level of service, what we quickly identified, and probably through making and breaking a few different models, is trying to do full file ownership from end to end is really tricky. We know from a broker's point of view, we only want a broker doing broker things. So in a perfect world, the broker will do the initial chat. They'll do credit, they'll do the research, and they'll do the recommendation. Outside of that, we've got a team that onboard the client, so all of the documents in, data extraction, data validation, the renaming, the data entry, all of that stuff is all done for them. So when a client when a broker walks into an initial chat, that's all presented for them, ready to go. Likewise, when docs are then received back and they do a deeper dive and the credit research is done, that's all presented, I guess what we'd call like a pre-assessment, like a bank would do. Our team will do that on behalf of the broker. So again, the specialist walks into the X-ray, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The client through that journey, though, is being sort of not handheld through, but guided through the journey, because we know, two things. Clients will never get smarter and banks will never get easier, right? That's the two controllables, uncontrollables in the world we live in. But the third controllable's us, right? So is it on the client to be able to do those things better, or is it on us to take more ownership and responsibility in the process? So I go back to that comment earlier about how do you make it easier to do business with us. So it's a very hands-on approach with the client to help them through that journey. Mm-hmm. It's our role to educate them in the process, not their role to know how to do it better.
So do you tell them the process when you start? Like when the broker's having that initial client meeting, are you kind of going like, here are the steps that will happen next and here are the things that you need to provide so that they're kind of aware of
Absolutely. It's our role to educate them, not their role to know, right? And there's a lot of extreme ownership in that process when we're going through step by step. if it's not making the customer experience better or easier, then we shouldn't do it. If it's saving us, is it saving us time or is it saving the customer time? There's a real balance. There's a bit of a fine line there, right? Because my team would go, well,
I don't want to be doing my work.
Correct. So it's like, well, how do we balance that? So
Yeah.
if you follow it sort of upstream or downstream, we go, well, what type of conversation could we have? How much better could the conversation be up front that would actually stop that happening down here in the process? If we're constantly missing that document, is that their fault or our fault? Right. And so you just, there's that whole Kaizen, that constant improvement. We're much to the, I would say delight, but I'd be lying, the delight of my team when we're constantly reviewing this stuff, but they're all on board. They're curious as well. They want to make sure that we can make the experience better for our customers, and they know if it's better for them, it will be better for us long term as well.
Yeah, and so I think we were talking there about like, you know, the sort of the pre-assessment, as it were, for the different types of loan options that could be made available. The broker then reviews it. And you mentioned earlier about having a sort of client retention, or what sounded like to me at least a post-settlement care team.
Yeah,
Is
customer
that
care.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've had them for a decade.
Yes.
It's quite a long time for post-settlement stuff.
Well, we knew very early on that was really important to us as a business, that if we were going to provide, you know, what's our point of difference? Everyone has access to CBA, everyone has Westpac. You know, for us, it's a customer experience, and it's also customers for life. Once they're on board, nobody leaves, right? And it's our role to nurture that relationship, because I knew from my previous experience in sales how much easier it is to keep an existing client than it is to find a new one, right? And so many people are forward-facing, busy chasing new clients. So I go, well, if we just did 10% more for our existing database, we'd probably be in a much better space. And we're also dealing with people that already know us, they already trust us, and they want to work with us. And they're also going to be, you know, from an advocate to a raving fan. You know, so we take them on a journey to make sure. And, you know, we're sending out 15-year letters to some clients. Like there's some real milestones in there.
Yeah. I actually haven't asked this yet, and I probably should have. What kind of volumes are you writing?
So the thing with the Townsville market has taught us is volume. Yeah, because a number of customers helped versus a Double Bay or North Sydney average loan size meant that we had to work 2 or 3 times as hard to write the same volume. But in doing that, we also needed to provide the same level of service, if not more, because regional, again, is very relationship driven. It's not a transactional market. It's very relationship driven. So, you know, we did last financial would have been 409 clients between 2 brokers, right? So there's
just in Townsville.
That would have been across the 2,
yeah.
When there was only the 2 brokers running. That's a lot of, and that's settled, or a number of customers help. It's a lot of people that we're in front of, and the volume that we have to get through. So the learnings from that have now given us given us the edge. I'm just trying to get that in there.
Like edge.
Is giving us the edge when it comes to bigger markets that we want to. When we want to chase more sort of young professionals, wealth creation, high net worth, when we're sort of really dialing in on that customer base, if we can do volume, all the learnings we've got from volume and customer service, and we're able to, you know, maybe double the average loan size, suddenly we're a very different business.
And just going back to the process side of things, I think like the post-settlement conversation was obviously super important when we had all of the record low cash rates over COVID, and then sort of escalating since then. A huge refinancing boom, then a fixed rate, you know, cliff, and everyone panicked. And now kind of, I think, coming into a different cycle again where rates potentially may continue falling depending on who you talk to.
Yep.
But a lot of people are thinking like, do I need to be repricing my loan? Do I need to be refinancing? Can I be getting a discount? Can I be pulling out some equity? How much time do you think brokers should be dedicating to talking to existing clients around that kind of post-settlement journey and seeing where they are?
A lot, enough to have 1.5 staff members looking at it like every week, every day. You know, for us, there's 1.5 staff in that part of the business. I know when you talk about when COVID hit and everything happened, we shifted half of our business. I committed to make sure that we kept all of our staff, and we shifted over half of the team into that team effectively to make sure we got on the front foot. Thankfully, because we had a process, the customers were used to, we knew what we were doing, we were able to, you know, shift into that and sort of hyperdrive to just make sure we were there for our customers. Now, where we are now, be it 4 or 5 years later from that event, it's that relationship that we've built over that time that is absolutely the reason we're the business that we are. Now, whether that's, again, the reprice guarantee, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to have the ability to get it repriced or an outcome every year, but I'm going to try, right? For us, it's about celebrating the process, not the outcome. And let's not get hooked up on the fact that for the last 10 years, we've rung your bank every year in a row and they've only repriced it twice. Yeah, let's not get hooked up on the fact that I've rung your bank every year for the last 10 years is what we want to celebrate. Now, during that, there's obviously conversations around changes to their circumstances, other things they're looking to do. So it's not just, and it's also it's not just pricing. I believe it's the right thing to do. If it's a relationship, you should know where your customer's at year 8. Because if they had goals in year 5 to be able to accelerate, paying down the debt on the home loan and wanting to buy an investment or upgrade or do something for their kids, or you should know that. And we know that because every single year we've had the same conversation. We've checked in. Are you on track? Is there anything we can do to help? It's not just the repricing. That's when I probably talk a little bit about celebrating the process, not the outcome. Repricing is just a great conversation starter. But a lot of that, especially over the last few years, is just, are you okay?
Yeah.
It's sort of just checking in.
Yeah. And yeah, of course, that's when you find out all the information about what their plans are in the future, or if circumstances have changed as well, and maybe you can help in different ways. You talked there as well about the fact that, everyone can kind of look at working across the business. You're not really working in like a sort of siloed area. I wonder, did that come from experience? Because you said like your process has changed a lot. I wonder, like, what didn't work? Maybe give us some of the lessons from the
How
failures.
long have we got? No, look, we've tried a few different ways, and if we talk about kind of pools and pods, right, into the silos or pooling. So when we kind of had 2 senior brokers at the front, and then we had credit analysts working with them, a pool of them, and then we had CSM supporting them. So there was sort of support for the support. So you had kind of people managing a process.
Yeah.
Right. And that we got to a certain point where we thought that was the model that was going to take us to the moon. And we kind of really broke the back of that. And it became very obvious that in that case, we needed to shift around how that was going to work. So the idea now, probably moving back into pods where the pool we have is all of the CSM work. So anything from data validation, data extraction, data entry. Side note, very bullish on AI. So we're well down that rabbit hole where, 30% of our business will be done through AI by the end of this calendar year. Got to keep saying it out loud, so then it's real.
It's
real.
A target, yeah.
We're on track. There's some very easy, low-hanging fruit there that we'll get to that 30%. It's the 50% by the middle of next year, which will be the challenging uprise. But we're very much on track for the 30%. So a lot of those things will be done. Again, we've got now our CSMs with that support, right? It's not to replace them, right? It's absolutely not to replace them, but now I can upskill them to do other parts of the role, right? Which means we can then provide a better customer service through that experience.
I'm sure many listeners will be like, what? 50% AI by next year?
Yeah.
How?
Well, if you think about of the client journey with your business, and if I just pull out data when we receive data, so there's data validation. Yeah, that data's got to be stored. The documents need to be renamed. It needs to be put into our CRM. Mm-hmm. That's an hour and a half sometimes. And if once that's validated as well, and that information is then put onto that pre-assessment document, that could be anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. Someone's got 11 entities. We talk about some of the more complex, stuff, but there's multiple entities. There's income, there's directors, there's 7 properties or 30 property, that stuff takes a very, very long time to do. So that for us is probably where we're going to get that first 30%. We shouldn't be doing any of that heavy lifting. Once those documents come in, all of that will be done by an agent, so to speak.
AI agent.
Yeah.
And are you building that yourself? Is that an off-the-shelf tool? Is Loan Market providing it? What tech are you using? I know you probably don't want to give away the secret sauce, but I'm just like, for anyone
we're
who's
very, very fortunate that Loan Market are on the train, so to speak, and they are well ahead of the curve when it comes to the things they're already building within our CRM. Very lucky that we're attached to the Google Suite, which means we've been able to integrate Gemini in a safe environment, which can already do a large majority of what I've spoken about there. And we've kind of gone down some rabbit holes, suddenly taught myself to code and done all sorts of things there, which I'm nowhere near smart enough to be able to do that. But with the help of those tools, some of that's already automated and already happening. It'll be the last piece of the puzzle, which we're working with some developers and with Loan Market on, to have that done as a process on our behalf. Right now, there's a little bit of manual integration, where the prompts and everything's sort of built out and you sort of drag, drop, and it's all done. But when someone else drags it and drops it and puts it in, that's the magic. And that's someone else being not one of my staff.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So I'm sure lots of people have many more questions about that.
But
we hold a separate podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when we look at then, I guess, how you yourself kind of went from being a broker to a business owner, I think this is a super common one. If I call it the 7-year itch, people who are 7 years in business, they've built a really successful team. They've really kind of gone, what's next? And for a lot of brokers, that's either I'm going to change, I'm going to diversify, or I'm going to change how I do business. But for others, it's I'm now going to become a business owner and come off the tools. But that's a scary inflection point, especially if you built a brand around your own brand name and your own customer service and experience. To no longer be doing that can be quite scary. So you said you made the decision about 12 months ago to do it. Why?
Well, it was sort of 4 years into that 5-year plan was like that was the Brokertopia. We're always working towards that. But there was a mindset shift probably 12 months ago where I was able to differentiate the two. We're very clearly from about the who's our customer. And that was like a business decision. That was well out of my head, and it was something I could then articulate very well. I mean, some of the things I would talk to some of the young business owners we work with within Loan Market, things like going down that model, you've got to be able to feed it and you've got to be able to fund it. People that go, I bought a broker on, and they sit at a desk and they've got to get their own leads. And I was like, why join you? But why would they stay with you? If they process their own deals, if they're going to get their own leads, you've got to be providing an immense amount of value. Now, the cash flow required to do that at a certain stage as well can be quite scary. And I talk about you've got to be able to feed it, you've got to be able to fund it. Like, you can't sit a broker at a desk in your business and just expect them to write. There's a lot more that's going to go into that. You are also constantly dragged back in to that if you don't have a very clear plan. And don't get me wrong, a one-man band with 3 support staff chipping away, writing 200 mil a year is highly profitable. Maybe not sustainable, but highly profitable and a great business model. So that's okay if that's the decision. But there's a book, The E-Myth, talk about it. So they talk about the 3 different types of people in business or persons in business: the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. Now, some people are really good technicians, and they're great at what they do and should always stay in that role. Some people just can't manage people or don't want to. It's not about they can't, they don't want to. And I don't. I'm incredibly fortunate and grateful. I have an amazing team, right? But we're all humans, right? And there's a lot that goes into that part, and you really want to go down that journey. And so the making a decision part is probably the first part. What do you want out of this business? I have that curiosity. I go, if you walked out of your business today, turned your phone over, walked back in 30 days' time, would it have run the exact same way? The answer is no, you don't have a business, you have a job. Now, that's okay. It's not a challenge, but it's a curiosity to go, well, what do you want out of this? And so it was realigning those thoughts about going, well, what do I actually want? What gives me energy and what takes my energy? And that time and energy audit, was really important. Another part of that journey, I always talk about 2 things that are really important to me, or 2 things I'm really protective of, and one's my time and 2's my energy. My calendar reflects that. The way we run day to day reflects that, and I try to pass that on to my team. So in those examples, it was just getting really clear about that. It was one thing. I probably had the head in the sand for a lot of those first maybe 10 years, and you're trying things and the learnings, and we probably didn't have this environment where everything is so digital now and great things like this podcast and things we do for each other. It's one of the best industries in the world. I couldn't think of doing anything else. And so I'm grateful to be able to share the journey with others. We probably just didn't have that as much back then.
Yeah.
And now that we do, when we sit down with those people, it's about making that decision. If I did this again, would it take me 5 years? The answer is no. But I needed that because I talk to the team and I go, what got us here won't get us there. Right, I kind of had to burn the boats a little bit, right? I had to let go of a lot of things to be able to take that next stage. And I personally, the person I had to become to be able to be in the position I am today to do the things I'm doing and go on the next stage of that journey of leadership and whatnot.
We'll talk about the next stage and future growth in just a little bit. But firstly, I kind of want to ask about how you actually told your clients about you coming off the tools. Because I think that would be a big thing for a lot of people being like, what are my clients going to say? Yeah,
my phone's been diverted for maybe 8-9 years now. So full time, it doesn't get undiverted. So that goes directly lost. Most people just want to be heard. They want an answer. It doesn't necessarily need to come from me. And that's where we started. And then I used to work remotely quite a bit. And so we would block out periods there where I was unavailable. But the great news is, Vanessa that works alongside Phil and his team is one of the senior brokers available. She can meet with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. So most people that have interacted with our business know you work with a team, and a big part of that start of that journey was to move away from low market Phil Rogers to low market Edge, right? And it's now about the team. It's not about me, and initially I was like, just tell them I'm unavailable for a month and see how that goes, right? And people would be like, sweet, we'll wait 4 weeks. And I was like,
that's
not going to work, right? But again, as long as they are aware of the process. Sometimes even like VIP clients or just clients I've got great relationships with that actually genuinely would love to find out where they're up to. I might jump on the call for 5 minutes, right? It's not suddenly that, okay, all praise, we can't get to Phil now. It's like, no, there's a whole team, great to hear from you. They've had a phone call every year, right? And when they refer, it's interesting now when clients refer clients across, they actually tell them to just ask for one of the team. Yeah, so we've sort of, that was a sign of going, this is actually working, where they're not ringing up anymore and going, I want to talk to Phil. Even the Google reviews now, my name's often second, right, in there, and I was like, cool, this is working.
Is your sort of aim to just not be on the review at all? Be like, who's Phil?
Well, correct. They know we dealt with their team, and so it's like, and people have used the analogy and they go, I want to go to my accountant, but they don't talk to me anymore. Right. And I go, okay, well, that's because they haven't done the handover well enough. Right. I've celebrated. We've introduced the team. Like a big part of my success or our success as a business is our team. It's that whole sort of champion team, not a team of champions. Right. So they know when they interact with our business, that experience. And often to get to me is the last person they want to talk to because, I probably don't know where it's at the time, where the file's at, right? And my wait period to get to me might be a little bit longer. But when you have an amazing team that works, walks, talks, everything the same way, and we share the same values, we ensure the client gets the same experience, but they get a really warm handover.
I think the other thing that is so important when you've got a big team like this, like 18 people, it's a lot of people to manage. Do you have someone managing them, like a sort of general manager? I
am very fortunate that Michelle has been with me now for 13 years. So she's was the second hire way back when, and she's been there as our operations head of credit. Team everything, right? So she does, in a small business, as you know, kind of evolves, and the roles and responsibilities for myself and her are probably the most blurred across the business because we kind of do everything. But incredibly grateful that she's been with me the time that she has, and as in her role in operations is able to help steer a lot of that, especially when that crossover, which has been the last couple of years, you're doing kind of 40 appointments in 4 days every week. And I'm still also trying to bring on new brokers, and I want to lead the team, and I want to get back involved in this. And there's only so much I can do. So making that decision and splitting some of those roles and responsibilities has absolutely been the reason we've got to where we are.
And how do you maintain a kind of positive team culture? Because you're talking about, having the same values and kind of having a team that's along for the ride, but how do you actually find those people and retain them?
As they would expect me to say, the right people on the bus and in the right seats. That's a bit of, I do flog that one a little bit. No, look, it's, culture is a bit of a funny word that gets kind of, thrown around and they talk to me as the CEO, the Chief Energy Officer, right? Yeah. And so what I have learned, and there's a couple of big learnings in there. One is I was not great at celebrating the wins. The way that I tick, it was on the journey, not the outcome. And so I would constantly move past things. So I think slowing that down and as a team celebrating those things and setting those goals or being really clear on what we want as a team and also what we want individually. One of the things I love most about my role now is being able to do that personally and individually with each of our staff. And because if I help them achieve their goals, then I'll achieve mine. It doesn't go the other way around. We want to write X per month or per year. What does that mean to them? It means nothing, right? What do they want out of this? And whether that's progression within their role, whether it's buying a house outside, that's where we start. And I think that part of it I've selfishly really enjoyed, but I know that's giving a lot of value back to them. But they've been a really big part of shaping the business, and making sure that they're on board and there is an ability, absolutely celebrating two pathways in the business. And one of those is, obvious on the way to a broker space. But the other's also in our support role. We have the best brokers in the business, but we also have the best support staff in the business, right? And they're both celebrated equally.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break here, Phil, but when we come back, I'd like to talk about what's next, both for you and for Low Market Edge, plus any advice you have for brokers wanting to build their business. And we'll get into that just after this. So you mentioned there, Phil, about, kind of wanting to look at growing and wanting to do other things. So let's focus maybe on the next couple of months and then the next year. What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, it's exciting. Whilst the last couple of years have been really challenging, they've been the most rewarding. We've made some really big decisions on the clarity of where we want the business to go going forward. And, burning the boats, as I said, sounds very dramatic. But doing that, coming off the tools and now being able to present to the team in a different role and a different position already is working better than we could have expected. And it's probably because I was the pain point in a lot of those things. Yes, yeah, correct. It's a much nicer word than what the team used.
Pain point.
It's like Phil's desk is where deals go to die, right?
Yeah.
That's why I had a support team making sure that they kept moving. And so now that we move into that brokerage, the broker to brokerage, the operator to owner, whatever dialogue you want to use there. And we've got really clear on those 5 pillars, and we've gone to market now from a recruitment point of view with the different models and the PAYG and the JV. And there's been a lot of thought into that, and it's mapped out, and everyone on the bus is fully aware of what that looks like and are really excited about the next phase of the business. And so as we shift gears into that model and we start to recruit and onboard primarily more brokers, but we have just brought on a new head of marketing, which is really exciting because, again, 80% of Australians now use a broker. It's like the why choose us. We've got to cut through that noise, and if we talk about being best in market, we're very grateful that we have Loan Market on a national level to help support us. When it comes to winning local, that's something that Loan Market Edge needs to focus on. And then we're also doing branding and profiling for our brokers, which is a little bit unique, I think, in the industry. I think, we've benchmarked a lot of this against real estate. And I talked about that hotel for agents and, the why join us, why stay with us conversation. That is normalized in real estate. When you join when you join a real estate office, they have a contracts department, they have an admin team, they have a marketing team. You sell and you list properties. That's all an agent does. And so similar with us within the business with brokers. So we build that model out and we start to recruit for that. There's been some really key additions to the team that are going to allow us to grow quite quickly.
So, how big do you want to get to? How many brokers are you looking to recruit?
I've got a 2030 vision, and it's going to be presented to the team. So it would be rude of me to say it on this podcast without sharing with them. But look, no, I will say it. 2030. Our goal is to do $1 billion in loans by 2030. What's needed for that? Again, what got us here won't get us there. And without that BHAG, without that stretch goal, without something to work towards at that level, now if we miss that and hit 700, I'm not going to be upset, because what we are going to do is have a whole lot of fun on that journey. What I love about the touch with AI is that we're going to be able to do more with the people that we have. Yeah, and take some of those more labor-intensive tasks off them. So there's areas already pinpointed in the business that the org chart we have today will look very different by June 30, 2026.
Yeah.
Let alone what that's going to look like in 2030, right? And I want to get excited about that stuff, right? It's the energy that's come back into. And when I talked about that brokerage spot and a non-writing principal, I'm not their competition. They've got 100% of my time. I want to be able to devote that in a leadership space. Again, I enjoy growing people. I enjoy growing businesses. The succession planning out of that will be long-term. Absolutely. I'd love also to take those people and, fund them into sites and into businesses themselves. And, so the JV models within our business, we run profit centers and P&Ls, and there's a lot of coaching and leadership. And we use that kind of analogy. We look at, like, what are we bringing in? We probably don't have the ability anymore currently to teach people to walk, right? We can't bring new to industry, right? But if you can run, we'll teach you to sprint. So if someone's at 40 or 50 mil and there's some things that they need, whether that's back end, lead gen, the things we've got in there, leadership, growth development, training stuff, credit coaching, we'll take them from 50 to 150. That's the sweet spot. And that's the fun, right? And I think the team, everyone's sort of ready with that. They're all on board. So by this time, June 30, there will be significant growth in that patch, but that's all aligned with where do we want to be in 2030.
Yeah. Sorry, quickly, Phil, you said $1 billion by 2030. Is that a year?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just say that?
$1 billion in loans written per year by 2030.
Yeah. Okay. That's huge.
It's a big number.
You're going to need a lot of people.
Well, you know what? You know what I love about this? I don't think we need a lot of, I don't think, go back 12 months, the number I had written down of staff that we needed is now a third. Yeah. That number was closer to 150. I think it's closer to 50.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm sure lots of brokers are probably now firstly a little bit freaked out about their own businesses and being like, oh my God, I've got to make a new 5-year plan, new 2030 plan. But also probably thinking how interesting and like maybe thinking about what they can be doing in their businesses. If you had some advice for people wanting to build and wanting to do, kind of maybe getting off the tools and building their business, like what advice would you give them before they do it?
I think some of the things we do really well, and I talked about, 2030 and that bigger 4 or 5 year vision, I really can't, it's funny, I use that, but then I go, I actually can't look past 12 months. Like I need that as a stretch and something to aim towards, but I really work on 12 months maximum. We do a lot of 90-day sprints, 3 to 5 main things. What are your big rocks? Like get really strategic and bring that right down, because the pace at which things are moving now, anything beyond 12 months, I don't think personally works. I'm putting a lot in over the next 12 months into personal development and some external coaching and things to know the person I need to become to get to that level. So don't allow that to be overwhelming. Don't look at that and go, oh, that's an unattainable number. It's like deciding what you want out of the business, writing that down. You might have a 5-year plan, but I would really not focus anything further than 12 months. And then I'd be able to break that down and go by quarter 1, what needs to happen? What are the 3 things that I need to achieve in that period to know that I'm on track at week 11 to hit my 12-month goal?
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say there as well, and talked about that, growing the business, is you don't always, love what you do. If you're a great technician, join a great business. Yeah, not doing what we do, and a certain type of character, right? A person that would put themselves through what I put myself through in the last 15 years. That's just how I'm built, and I enjoy that. And I especially enjoy the journey, especially where I am now. But for a lot of people, we'll have some great people in the business that are amazing technicians that'll make really good money, and when it comes to balance, the things that they need, whether that's time with family, whether that's external, whether that's, building a property portfolio, they can still do those things without the stress of the P&L, without the stress of the overheads, without the, so I think as we evolve as an industry, and the barrier to entry had been so low for so long, and that's not a bad thing. I think, chapter one, Phil, that was me, right? So I'm glad it existed. But as we move into the new space we're in now, it's getting clear about that decision and whether that's a business owner or whether that's why we've gone down the JV model. It's having people grow a business within our business, give them all the support, 15 years of learnings, everything they need, just without the risk and the sleepless nights, right? There's a balance in there. So the clarity about what that decision is, I think, is really important, and treat it like that. Treat it like a business or treat it like a job.
So you talked there about, the sleepless nights. And I think this is, again, something that a lot of brokers, particularly when they're becoming like business owners and have staff they need to worry about, and not they need to worry about, have staff bills they need to worry about, and they have staff. Do you kind of do anything to make time for your own stress management, your own well-being? Like, what do you do to unwind and de-stress?
Yeah, I'm really big on sort of calendar management, time and energy audits constantly. It's easy to go through a calendar. It's either going to be red or green. It's either going to give you energy, it's going to take you energy, right? And if you look at your week and you look at your month and there's more red than there is green, something needs to change. I know personally, probably on my own journey of self-development and those things, personal development, it starts in the head first. I had to say it out loud. I was like pointing and I was like, there's people listening on the podcast.
Yeah, they can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, correct. And for me, if I'm not right physically, then I'll be no good mentally, right? And so a lot of what I do, although I don't have these magic routines, but health is the new wealth. Like, that's 100% the most important thing to me, because if I can't balance both my sort of physical and mental health, then nothing else exists. So for me, I am very active, probably train 6-7 days a week. And it doesn't mean, we're busy. I get it. The B word. I don't like the B word at work. We're busy, right? Are you productive or are you busy? Two different things. But I do get up very early if it means that if I've got to sacrifice on something, I will move to put my physical and mental health before work 100%. And that's taken time to get that. The first 10 years of 7 days a week, it's like that hustle culture. The reality is hard work means great reward. So I love that, but I've also realized that recovery in that space has probably been the next kind of superpower that I've unlocked, was an ability to actually kind of switch off. I consume a lot of really great content. Everyone's different. It might be, again, time with family, time with a partner. It might be being active outdoors, whatever that is. You show me your calendar and I can pretty much define what your outcome's going to be. And so for me, the calendar management became really important, whether that's the perfect week, the perfect month. We do a lot around operating rhythms, right? And there's just non-negotiables. I don't care how busy we are. If that's a day I've planned to go for a walk with my partner, that's where I'm going to be.
Mm. And when you look at then also things that are kind of out of your control, and I think a lot of people will probably resonate with the fact that there's so many things in broking that people are like, oh, this is so annoying. Like, why does it work like this? And why can't I do this? Like, let's think before open banking, you couldn't always see where people's what their loan rate was. You can't necessarily handle what the lender is doing. You can't handle what the client's doing. Yeah. There's a lot of challenges in the broking industry. If you could change anything, like one thing, what would you change?
I have to narrow it to one.
All right, 3.
No, look, I think what I would change in my role compared to maybe what my team would ask for, the simplicity of being able to maybe use one platform to lodge on would no doubt be an amazing call from my team. I have no doubt that would be a lot of fun. Like, I'm a big supporter of bid. I love the regulation. I love the fact that you make genuine inquiries into a client's position to understand. Like, I think that has to be there. And I think to be able to give any level of advice or recommendation, we can't do that without it. So I don't want shortcuts around some of that stuff, but would it make sense? And again, that's why the use of AI, I still want it to happen, right? But I'd rather not have someone sitting at a desk pulling that stuff apart. Things like open banking will absolutely make that easier for the client firstly, which also makes it easier for us. So, I mean, one platform, no doubt, would be one of their great wishes. The use of open banking, which I think we've been talking about, that's been coming for 4 years or something now. It's a little bit closer. It's kind of here in dribs and drabs now. Would love the banks to get on board with that. But outside of that, like if we didn't have those challenges, I wouldn't have a business. So it's careful. You got to be careful what you ask for, right? Yeah. I like that they're there. We've got a great team. We lean into, in the great words of Jason Back, we're ferociously curious, right? And so as a team, when we bring those things together once a week and once a month, and we pull those things apart, we just find ways to do things better, not hope for them to get easier. Yeah, it's a very different mindset.
Yeah. Be proactive about it. So just in closing, Phil, thank you for letting me pick your brain so thoroughly here on the podcast. If you had any advice for a new broker just starting out in this industry, and I'm sure you kind of see this a lot with your own team, like what do you think it takes to succeed as a broker?
I think the first couple of things, as I mentioned before, one, just make a decision about what you do want out of this first and foremost, and cut your teeth and do your time. Don't skip steps. Don't join the industry and then go, well, I'm just going to open a franchise and I'll fumble my way through for the first 5 or 6 years. Join an amazing team, get under some leadership, get that support around you. Like really, I guess like anything, you go to university, you go with financial services, I think there's real value in being supported and not doing it on your own, because this can be a very lonely game. Yeah. So don't skip steps is a big one, and really think about your calendar. As I mentioned before, I think when we talk about time, energy management, make sure that your calendar reflects that. Have a look at your operating rhythms. Have your non-negotiables. Treat it like we often talk about like a professional sports team. You have your on, you have your off. Well, I do a lot of the 90-day sprints, have your 10 weeks on and then have something to look forward to. Make sure you have that balance, if it's 6 weeks and then 4 days, whatever it looks like, make sure that you build the business around you, not the other way. The other way. Yes, the other way. Didn't sound right. But
don't build it around you.
Yeah, correct. Make sure that it's built for your enjoyment. Yeah. Otherwise, 3-4 years in burnout. People would challenge me when I say there's no such thing as burnout, right? It's if you love what you do, if this is built around the way that you want, it's a business by design, not by default. It's a life by design, not by default. That's all in the planning.
Some great advice there, Phil. It's going to make me go and redo my calendar now. I'm going to do a calendar audit. I think it's good advice. Thank you so much for chatting to us here on Elite Broker about how you've been operating Low Market Edge and what you've got in for the future. Really interesting to see that some of the targets you've put in place there, the use of AI, how you're going to grow to $1 billion a year by 2030. I'll come back in 2030 and be like, let's do this again and see how you did it. But yeah, if you've got any questions for me or for Phil, then do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au. Of course, Low Market Edge to find out. Apparently they're recruiting. So,
shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. You can find out more about what they're doing over there. And of course, listen back to previous episodes here on the Advisor Podcast Network to find out more about what Australia's leading and new brokers have been doing to build their businesses for success. We hope you have a great week and we'll catch you next time for another episode on the Advisor Podcast Network.